Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Justin White. I'm here in North Carolina with Brett Stewart or Brett Prey, if you just didn't know, of Prey Performance. It's a long-awaited one. Kind of wanted to make sure we do this the right way. I know Brett wants to talk some shit, and I'm sure he's going to talk a little shit. We're going to limit it because I wanted to take you guys through the Brett that I met, the Brett that I learned before all of the Facebook drama and things like that. I learned of him when he came out to Cadillac Attack and other events and was just in the pits hustling and, you know, just smacking people around. So I kind of want to take this to introduce him in the light that most people don't get to see. It's kind of also to tell where this starts from, because this starts from about when I was 4 years old. So take us back there of where you come from, and let's go through this history and why you do what you do today.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. Basically grew up in the Bay Area, San Francisco area in the 70s and 80s into the 90s. You know, everybody in the neighborhood had old cars, hot rods, that kind of stuff. The other big determiner, honestly, which is funny, is that I didn't put it in my notes, is that in California, everything pre-30 years was no smog. So
right.
We were dealing with, you know, emissions back when I started driving in 93, 94. So the only way us kids could hot rod was to have a pre-69, 70, whatever it was, vehicle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like 73, 74. But then you get into those, like, junk era Chevrolets.
I was going to say, that's not like the prime years by any means.
So, praise God, man. My mom, you know, she had a 57 Bel Air. She had a 68 Le Mans, I think. And then she ended up getting a 69 GTO in quite a odd situation. So she traded in the 57 Chevy for the 68 Le Mans because that's all she could afford. That's all it was worth. She leaves. She drag races a dude that just bought a 400 top of the line 69 GTO. Of course, gets her butt stomped. But she sees dude make a U-turn and go back to the dealership, so she follows him back. She gets back there. The guy wants his money back because the car scared him to death. So she ended up trading the guy her 68 whatever Le Mans for the 400, you know, Ram Air 5, whatever it was called back then, GTO. So fast forward a little bit, her and my dad meet, get married, whatever, in the 70s, and actually, I guess in the late 60s. And their wedding rice was still in that thing, you know, the whole 9 yards. It was on the side of my house. But my grandfather owned a gas station in San Francisco. Kids across the street were all hot rodders. It was just the culture, to be honest with you. Like California sucks now. California kind of sucked back then, but it definitely didn't suck as bad.
Right.
Way back in the day, you know what I mean? So, yeah, man, just, my dad had a machine shop, not car related, large machines. Ended up, unbeknownst to us at the time, hired a couple Hells Angels who had a friend who had a friend. And so when I came online, when I was like 15, working there, those guys were already there. And, you know, started working on bikes and cars, and the guys across the street had cars and all that stuff. So anyway, ended up with a 69 V-Dub Bug. Ended up putting like an 1800cc, whatever in that. Was just getting crushed by my buddies that had classics. And, you know, it was always the sibling rivalry. Actually, one of my best friends, his dad had a 69 SS396 4-speed Muncie Chevelle. Mm-hmm. And my mom had the 400 GTO, and we would just talk at each other all the time, who was going to be faster. So we ended up, you know, to move ahead. Nothing ever happened with the GTO, unfortunately. I was young and stupid, and you know, just nothing happened with it. Anyway, So yeah, through all that, buddies get it. The only way we could hot rod cars was to get old cars, and that's what was affordable. So I ended up getting a '69 Camaro eventually when I was 17, I think. Now, mind you, I ended up being the shop floor manager. I graduated high school when I was 17. Ended up being the shop floor manager at my dad's place. So I made California money as a 17-year-old living at my mom's house. So all of my spare time and money went into cars and, with my friends. And what's funny, my dad always had El Caminos, and somebody over there, that hot blonde chick, she won't allow me to get an Elco, but dude, that's what I grew up on, bro. Like, we would travel down to LA and all that stuff, and my dad had like a 67 Impala, straight boat, 60 by
Good looking boat though.
60 by 4, with like 4 kids in the back and 2 in the front. And
you just trick her, you buy a ute.
yeah. So, but dude, I just like something etched in my memory, So anyway, the ended up with a '69. I think I bought it for like $2,300. Put my heart and soul into that thing, and oddly enough, like my dad was 100% unsupportive. So
damn.
Yeah, it's really weird, man. And so my brother-in-law ended up becoming my brother-in-law. Steve, he owns a company now called Panavia. He was in the 5.0 market, but super smart guy. I'm technically advanced. I ain't got much up here. That's just the way it is. So he was cutting like 5.0 proms when there was no such thing.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. So that was kind of his jam. So we ended up dropping a L98 motor in his Jaguar XK8 of all things. Yeah.
What a weird combination there.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably because the motor broke down.
Yeah.
Or the electrical just went to shit.
Yeah. And I ended up buying that '69 Camaro and ended up moving through different phases, like dealing with AFR because they were in California.
Yeah.
But so they were making the AFR 210s at the time, and I got a set, and that's what we were putting on a 377, a D-stroke, 400 back in the day that we were going to put in the '69 Camaro.
Yeah, what year was this?
This was like 94, 95.
Okay.
That's back when you could get your ass beat for saying you ran 13s, because it just didn't happen.
Damn.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Nobody ran 13s. Like, if you claim somebody ran 13s, because it was all street hustle. Because, like, I grew up, racing at Brotherhood, racing behind Candlestick Park at 3Com, in Hunters Point, driving down to LA to Crenshaw and, all that stuff. So, it was obviously not the same, like, finite hustle it is now.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, right now it's a business.
It's a shit show.
Yeah.
But whatever. We'll get to that, I'm sure. But, back in the day, you're talking 3-speed unlock converters. Like, you had a 373, dude. I was getting 7 miles to the gallon, tacking $4,000, driving down 101 for 9 hours trying to get to LA.
Jesus
to race
Christ.
at night. Yeah, so it was ridiculous. So
I couldn't imagine that.
No, and you're in Hunters Point as the only white kid in a nice car, and you got dudes in shower shoes and fucking house shit out there gambling on you, saying, "Hey, cracker, don't lose." So but that's how I grew up. So it was what it was. The West Coast was definitely different in the '90s. I'm not even gonna get into the politics of that, but it was definitely a more symbiotic scene.
Yeah.
Where it was about the cars, if that makes sense. And we were such a much larger melting pot, however you want to say it, than what I've seen in here in the last 28. How long have we been here? 28? 98? So 98 I got back to the south, basically. Whatever that is to me.
This is in the south.
It's pretty fucking south.
No.
According to them.
Does it snow here?
Yeah.
That's the north.
True.
If snow hits it, it's the north.
Yeah, so I got to Fort Campbell, Kentucky in '98. So prior to that, I was a straight California, San Francisco, Bay Area, West Coast.
Now, where was that military because of that? Was that because of military or
Yes.
no?
Yeah.
Okay, because
So-
you skipped that part.
Yeah, I wasn't there yet, but I had to, kind of slid into the other parts. So I had to kind of go back. I bounced around. So yeah, had a couple, had a SS 396, 67 Chevelle, had a 55 Chevy Bel Air, had a bunch of this stuff, and just it never worked out. So really, the 69 Camaro ended up getting an engine for that. Like I said, a 400 D-stroke, 377, blah, blah, blah. Stuck it in there, and there was some family issues, let's just say, that day. So I had taken it like halfway apart. My brother-in-law calls me, which is funny. This is what I want to bring up. My brother-in-law is the man. I love that dude to death. We don't talk much. Kind of an odd situation, but that black toolbox that I always have with me everywhere I go, he bought me that for Christmas when I was 15. And I still have
Damn.
it. It's literally right over there on the other side of Angel's car. So 32 years ago, or whatever it was, I still have it. So he definitely ignited the fire, and so anyway, he was supposed to come help me swap motors that day, and he's like, "Hey, something's going on." I used to shoot bow kind of professionally back in the day, and there was an archery spot way up the mountain from where we lived on the way to the beach, and he's like, "Hey, bro, can't help you out. Put your stuff together. We'll get back on it Monday or whatever. Just go do what you want to do." So threw the car back together. Had bought the old, God, what was it, like the 750 double pumper, probably totally unnecessary for the 290 horse 350 I had at the time. Threw it on there, but California was the first place to have ethanol-based fuels. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You would think the corn states would have been.
Because it was for emissions. Because you and I both know you
Yeah.
can make 1,500 wheel and pass emissions
Yep.
with corn, So yeah, California started that in the 90s. So ethanol-based fuels. And someone can, correct me in the comments, but I don't care what you say. So, long story short, dude, yeah, so I'm driving up the hill and the car just puffs. Now, mind you, I had just had it painted for like the 5th time because they couldn't get the color right. And it ignites a fire. It burned all the seals out. The ethanol seals in the carburetor. Just a straight dripping fuel. That's why I was getting 7 miles to the freaking gallon, but didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, just lit that biscuit on fire, bro. And it got under the dash. And what was crazy is everybody around there was hot rodders, dude. So on the way up there, there's a place called the Woodside Fire Department, and they were all hot rodders because they live right down the street from a friend of mine. So this thing lights on fire. I pull over, trying to put it out. A cement truck pulls over with like a water hose. We think it's out, but we're not sure. So anyway, that dude leaves because we're blocking traffic to the beach, and it sparks back up. Caught that, I don't really call it horsehair interior or whatever, under the seats.
Yep.
Yeah, so it got into the dash, got under the tunnel, into the horsehair. Dunzo, bro. So that car was gone. So anyway, took the insurance money from that car. I bought it was 1996 at that point. So I had a really rich friend of mine that owed me. He owed me.
Yeah.
So he sold me his 96 convertible Vet for what I had. I had like 15 grand. And he sold me that. I was happy as could be. And then I go to insure it. And my insurance was like $6,000 or $7,000 a month. Or sorry, a year. So I was like, dude, I can't afford $500 or $600 a month for freaking insurance.
Jesus.
Dude. So I called him back and I'm like, hey man, I gotta give you this car back. So he's like, yeah, no worries, dude. So he takes the car back. So I ended up buying this 91 Camaro. What did you call it, babe? Anita or Ivana? Ivana. Because we weren't all that poor. So I'll get to that.
Ivana?
Ivana. So I had a red 91 Camaro that she called Ivana. No, I'm sorry. I was Anita. I can't remember. Yeah, I was Anita and my buddy was Ivana. So it ended
I feel like there's something underlying there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't want to jump around. Anyway, she was a sugar mama when I met her. So it do be facts though. Yeah. So anyway, I get the 91. We dropped that 377 in it, which ended up being cool yet ill-fated because I had the AFR 210s for the 377 that was sitting on the stand that we were supposed to put in the 69.
Luckily you didn't, because it would be gone.
Just lost everything.
Yeah.
You know, everything. That thing was gone to. So anyway, that thing, like I said, was ill-fated, but since it was a 91, I had to pass emissions. So now I'm calling down there.
And we're talking like OptiSpark LT1.
No, we're talking L98, bro. TPI.
Oh, Jesus.
With fucking distributor.
When did LT1 come out? 94?
No, yeah. Yeah. Oh, dang, I'm glad you said that. So I went to the dealership and I had my 15 grand, but I didn't want a car payment because I didn't believe in having car payments. You know, I wanted to cash out. And luckily my dad actually, like, because I was making good money, you know, so I was trying to help my mom out, pay bills, and, you know, not be a deal hole, and, you know, this and that. So, yeah, so my dad made me invest, or I guess basically get a loan, and then just start paying the loan off every month, even though I already had put the cash in the bank. So I was just getting like a direct withdrawal, but just so I could build credit.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so when I cashed out on the 96 bet and then realized I, you know, just wasn't going to pay that much, you know, so like I said, a good friend of mine took that back. It didn't bother him a bit. I got the 91. We had to set up those heads for emissions. So now I'm over there running the mill and all that stuff, putting ECT sensors and, you know, all kinds of crap that was for emissions back then. Put all that in there, and that was like 97 and 98-ish time frame. What's funny is, still on my buddy's head, hot rods. And that's when friends were getting into nitrous. And I had a buddy that was, I mean, it was the Bay Area, dude. Like, people were stupid rich. So, I had a buddy with a 64 Chevelle, gorgeous car, 350 car, whatever, kind of fast. Everybody claimed it ran 10s. There's no way. Anywho.
Didn't happen. Didn't happen.
Bro. Did not happen. So, really good friend of mine. And so he was kind of king dingling, right? And we used the same shops, kind of. I was dealing with some guys in LA that I'd met, and he was still dealing with the local guys. And so we ended up taking that ill-fated 377. I ended up doing a 383. Ended up working over the cylinder heads a little bit by myself, just hanging out in the shop, talking to my buddies. And had like the Langenfelter tune port, whatever, crazy shit on it. But back then, we were into more like road racing. Yeah, I drag raced, you know, this and that, especially with the 69. But when I got the Camaro, you know, like I heated the springs and lowered it, you know, in my mind, like I had a freaking Ferrari, you know. So,
you didn't have, you know, $100 Chinese drop springs.
No, there was no iBox.
You had
acetylene, bro. I had freaking,
yeah.
we put spacers in the springs and torched them suckers.
Yep.
Or you would put clamps on them to lower it. And then, God forbid, like one of those things knocked off at night, right? So I lived 11 miles from the ocean on Highway 1. So if you went straight out to Half Moon Bay on Highway 1, it's literally, I think it's like 60 miles to the dot to Santa Cruz Pier. So we would go over there and we would try to make the 60 miles in 30 minutes. So you had to average 120 miles an hour down Highway 1.
In a car that probably
the guy that had an overdrive, dog.
has early, you know, brakes and things like that.
Yeah, it was horrific.
They handled horrible.
Like 17, 18, I didn't care. Thought I was invincible. And coming from my 69 Bug, that's funny. So my 69 Bug, where I used to go shoot my bow, was in the mountains right there where all the Ritchie Ridges were. So there was the road I used to go up and down was called Kings Mountain Road. And you know, like, I'll show you a picture of that Bug later. But it was, you know, slammed to the ground, big ass tires, no suspension. Like, it used to be the joke to put girls in there and they would just drive like this the whole time, just, you know, because the only suspension was the seat. You know?
Jesus
So,
Christ.
Like, and I had two 18s in the back that would lock your legs up. You know, just boo, 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 boo. Like I said, yeah, I kind of grew up in the ghetto. All right, so, yeah, back then, you know, going up and down the mountains, all that stuff, I really wasn't concerned super much with the straight line stuff. But anyway, the 91, like I said, we heated the springs. Like, I didn't know what suspension was back then. All I knew is I had an overdrive transmission, I had extra gears, and I could go further. So it was funny because Damien ended up putting a 400 on spray. It's supposed to run 10s.
I was about to say 9s back then?
No, 10s. Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we're going to the drag spot, which used to be, I guess in like Texas they call it a frontage road.
Yeah.
So just not on the highway, but
Feeder road.
yeah. So this road was like an old road in California that paralleled where the new highway went in. But anyway, it was called Kenyatta Road, which is odd because that was Kenyatta College. They were nowhere near each other. Doesn't matter. So that's where we go drag race. And all I wanted to do was drive back then. But there was a hell of a mountain to go up to that. And I was in the front on my side, and everyone was behind me. Damien pulled out and got on it, and I saw him get it. So I was like, he was probably 4 cars back. And by this time I had built a 383, had converted the AFR 210s, had kind of worked them over myself. You know, whatever. So still, like, what do those things have? Like a 327 gear and a 700 R4? I can't remember. All I remember is that like 6,700 RPM in 4th gear with that whole setup was 176 miles an hour, and it would tap the rev limiter. So 176.
And something with heated springs and stock brakes, I'm sure.
I've had a death wish since I was 2.
Jeez.
So anyway, yeah, bro. So he pulls out and I see him coming. So I let him get to where I'm just starting to lose his car in my side view, and I pound it. And dude, I straight leapt out because I had traction and gapped his ass. And everybody behind us, the like 30, 40 cars, where everybody saw it. And they were just like, holy shit, Damien just got gapped. Now granted, he had a freaking 3-speed non-lockup converter, you know, whatever. So we get to the spot, and dude, he is just chomping at the bit to run me from a dig. And I was like, dude, you're on slicks and skinnies and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, it didn't happen.
Did you play it right at least? Like, we're never racing again?
Yeah, of course. So I was like, I won, you lost, shut up. So shortly thereafter, I left for the Army. Left my car there with my dad, and then got to Fort Campbell, got a bike. A year later, met her, and I was going to get rid of the bike, and she called, or she just happened to ask where I was that day, and I was like, I'm getting rid of the bike. And because you got to think, I went from making like $40,000 when I was like 17 to making like $300 every 2 weeks as a fucking private in the Army. So I was a broke bitch. And my car was still in California. You know, all I could afford was a bike. I had a little CBR F3 when we met. And she just liked to ride and stuff, you know. So she had a good job. So yeah, she's like, well, what did you ever want? I wanted the ZX7R, or RR at the time. It was 99. So she's like, well, if you can't afford it, I'll pay the rest of your bike payment. And I was like, word. So yeah, I was like, say word, son. So yeah, so she picked up the rest of my payment, and I got that 750RR. But what sucked is, like, I was trying to help her pay her rent, and I was paying to live near base with this other douche canoe that was in my platoon at the time. So I was like double broke, bro. Like I was trying to half up with her to be an even partner, and then I was paying this asshole to live in this apartment, and I was year-rounding freaking bikes. I had like 40-some thousand miles on that freaking F3, and then I had like 35 or 40,000 miles on the freaking Ninja. Like snow, rain, shine, it didn't matter, dude. The kid was riding. So finally, I think she gave me the money to get my car out from California. She's like, you need a car, dude. And so she gave me the money to get my car out, but she didn't understand what like cars were. She had like a brand new 240. No, not a 240. What was that SX you had? Was it a 240 SX? The 98 model? Like the change, the change body style? So she had like a brand new 240 SX. Dude, so we get the car shipped out. They drop it at her work in Nashville. And the guy's like scared to death to even pull it off the freaking trailer. Because it's just clicking and popping and banging and doing its thing, you know? So, I think I rode up there later and got it. Long story short, man, we ended up moving from Nashville down to Fort Campbell, close to, got a house, had a detached garage. And I met one guy in my unit that had a 89 IROC, and then his buddy had a 87 TA that had been converted over to a V8. So we just lived in the garage, man. I mean, I couldn't even tell you the amount of motors we built, the porting we did, you know, all the development, built headers, built intake manifolds, converted 6 ALs and 7 ALs to work. Ton of stuff, man. I don't even know how many 700 R4s I built in my life.
Well, probably the same one 50 times.
At least, dude. Yeah. So here's a funny story. I had this spot. I would get off work, I'd drive back to the house, and dude, I would light the tires up for 3 freaking gears off the road. So I do it, and just as I'm slowing down, I mean, there's like a 300 yard. That's an exaggeration. Probably like an 80 yard rooster tail behind the car. Yeah. But I'm not spinning anymore, and I'm chilling, and a cop's coming the other way. So I just kind of duck my head, and so there's 2 ways to our house. I hook the left and just start hauling ass to the house, and we had like, she was the queen to help me take, you know, those hoods were like 100 fucking pounds on a 3rd gen. So anyway, I get to the house, dude. I had this sucker on jacks. I got the transmission out of it. I got the hood off. She pulls in. I've already soaked this bitch down, so it's like cold, and the cops are like right behind her pulling in the drive. So they see her in her like business suit and, you know, in her nice little car and all this shit, and my raggedy ass in the freaking in the garage. Is this gentleman bothering you? Yeah. And they're like, hey, we got a report of this and that. And she's like, I don't know what's going on. So anyway, got away with it. So, dude, if I wasn't on one wheel, I wasn't happy. Like, I was just dumb, man. And so at that point, I almost killed myself on the bike because we were still living separate at the time. When I got rid of the bike, sorry, I should say that. Ended up almost killing myself. Pulled it back on her patio at her condo, and I was like, I'm getting rid of it. Couldn't get rid of it for a long time, so I just kind of sat at our new place. Kept working on the car, and then I was like, well, the bike's not that bad. I said, hey, when I make the car faster than the bike, I'll get rid of the bike.
When you make the car faster?
Yeah.
We're talking carbureted bikes. It's not.
It was right at the changeover. Because it was 99. So my douche canoe roommate, had a fuel-injected 750 Gixxer. But he was probably 50, 80 pounds heavier than me. And then we had different mods. So we would race down the highway all the time. But yeah.
You never drag strip?
No. Yeah, I did. I tried a couple times. I don't remember what it ran. Probably 7s. Something in the 7s, in the 8th. Because that's all they had. And I thought the 8th was, you know, the lamest thing I'd ever seen in my life. Yeah. Anyway, ended up had a buddy that was a really good rider, and he would borrow my bike on the weekends, and I would borrow his car when I needed it. So he'd be like, "Hey, I knocked the chicken stripe off your bike," and but I was riding it literally what was it, 80 miles one way from the condo to Campbell. Yeah, so I was riding it like hundreds and hundreds of miles down the freaking highway every week, to get back to her, and all that shit, and then get back to work, So anyway, ended up making the car faster than the bike, and had my buddy who wasn't a squid ride it, and the car was getting faster from a roll. That was way before the 6130 BS. So anyway, I sold the bike to a buddy, and that was that. So we, at the same time, Brian Tooley was still in Bowling Green with TEA. So I had the 210s still sitting on the shelf that I had done some stuff to, not a whole lot, but I had some Twisted Wedge 220s or whatever that I had worked over. So I took both of them to Brian, and we talked about the stuff and what we were going to do to them, this, that, and the other. And so we ended up getting those heads back, and that kind of established the, relationship with Brian back in 2000, 2001 maybe, something like that.
That's like right before he started getting into the CNC stuff, huh?
Yeah, I don't think they had CNC at the time.
I think he got into it in like 03, 04.
Yeah, so it was pre that. It was pre him going to TFS or, whatever up there in or Summit. It was pre all that. I remember going to Bowling Green, and the car ran like a 13 something. I was like, what the hell, dude? And it used to like shut off at like 45, 5500. And it was that whole, like, I was trying to make ram air and this and that. And all it was that the intake duct was sucked and shut. So one day I was like, let me put some rolled tin, some flat aluminum, rolled it in there, and all of a sudden the car picked up literally like 100 horsepower. So anyway, 9/11, I went to Special Forces selection. I flew on the 9th. Yeah. 8th or 9th. So I flew on the 9th here to Bragg from Campbell. I had a Leatherman in my freaking backpack that was in my lap.
Not a good time for that.
Well, it was 3 days prior to 9/11 happening, so nobody cared. Okay. Yeah, so I flew on the 9th, and then 9/11 happens 2 days later. I'm here, but she's there, because we got married in 99. Yeah. So,
don't ask me that in 20 years.
25, 6. I don't know. How many years has it been? 25? So, anyway, I get here to Bragg. I'm in selection. I'm like 3 days in. It's, midnight on day 3. We haven't slept. They've given us like the Minnesota multiple personality inventory. It's like 400 questions on, did you love your father? I'm like, well, the motherfucker's still alive, so kind of like him a little bit. I don't know how to answer this. It's like, do you like flowers? Sure. Do you want to be a florist? No. Oh, you're retarded. So they come in, they tell us, hey, we're at war, World Trade, Pentagon. I'm like, where the hell is the World Trade Center? I haven't even heard of it. So they ask everybody in there, hey, raise your hand if you have family, in the World Trade Center, Pentagon, or if you know anybody that would have been going to the White House. So there's like 330 guys that started selection, I think, and like 80 dudes in that classroom raised their hand. And I was already a senior, NCO. I'd already been in for like 4 years. Like I was already E5 or E6 at the time, whatever you had to be back then. And I'm just like, wah, wah, wah. You guys just got caught with your clown shoe freaking scenario. So I get up and I'm just like, pfft. So I start walking back and they tell everybody, hey man, then they say, no, we don't, not just like somebody, but first within the 3, mother, father, grandfather, brother, sister. If you're within that generation of, stay here. All those dudes stayed. So I was like, oh yeah, they just effed up. I was like, now we're gonna go back. They're gonna have to tell these dudes, sorry, we were just messing with you. And now whatever. Nah, man. All those dudes came back boo-hooing, packing their shit up like they were gonna go somewhere. So most of those dudes quit. Anyway, out of the 330 guys, I think I started selection, like 90 made it to the end, and I think 40 or 50 of us got selected. So I fly back in October or November. I guess October, November. Fly back to Campbell, and like, I don't understand what the hell's going on. I've been isolated. Never saw it. They didn't show it to us. Nothing. Just like it never happened.
That's weird.
Yeah. Because it wasn't part of our deal. They just told us don't quit, because if you want to go get your get backs, this is the place to get your get backs. And but if you quit, you're just going to go to the shit shack and you're never going to have your opportunity. So you know, anyway, yeah, so like I flew back. I think I got back on a Saturday night. Drove in on a Sunday. Just see my guys. Nobody bothered to say anything. Monday morning I tried to drive in. It took me like 9 hours to get on freaking post. I show up at God knows what time and I'm confused as hell. And then they're just like, oh yeah, remember? So anyway, fast forward to 02, I guess. We moved here. I made the car faster and faster as much as I could. Started burning E-proms. Like, that's how long I've been tuning. Looking at tuner. No, it wasn't even tuner cat. I can't remember what the hell it was called.
No, but is that the one where you were erasing it with the UV light and stuff?
Yeah, so you had to put it in this thing that like had a little lever on it. It was like this little white thing with a lever, and you would do like your DOS matrix printout, and then you would look at all the freaking crap that you logged, and then you would go in and try to change what you could, and then I probably had like a book of proms, you know, and I'd put a new prom in, lock it in the machine, do whatever it did, and then put it back in the car, and then go make another run, you know. And so yeah, I was doing that back then. Like I said, the car ended up going 12.0 at 123 on 245 Kumo Extas with on a stock converter. But that's back when roll racing didn't even exist. We just did it because you didn't have traction, and I didn't know there were so many tracks around here.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had another 69. I got another 69 Camaro when I was here. It had a 454 in it, 049 oval port heads. Ended up completely redoing that thing, porting the heads, all this stuff. We had some miscarriages and whatnot anyway. So I had given up, and I was just getting into the cars. So I had the 91 Camaro. I had the 91. I want to get rid of it. I had the 69 big block. And actually at the time I had got rid of the 91 and I bought a 98 WS6 Ram Air TA, which was my dream car. I tried earlier, it just didn't work out. So I get that car from a guy that was one of my instructors, and I was driving it, restoring the 69. I was putting in the payment for a twin turbo system for the 69, and she walks out and I'm on the phone and she's like, I gotta tell you something. And I was like, yeah, in a minute. And she's like, I gotta tell you something. And I was like, dude, I'm getting ready to send the money. She's like, that's why I'm out here. And I was like, okay, what? She's like, I'm pregnant again. And I was like, oh, hey, homie, let me call you back. So we waited a couple weeks, and praise God we got Tristan out of the deal. But yeah, so I ended up getting rid of that car, sold it. Had the 98, you know, my buddy Wayne Huffman. Wayne, I wrote your name down because you need credit. So Wayne had a vet at the time, and we would go back and forth. Wayne helped me put my first cam in that Trans Am, and then he was using HP tuners, and then I ended up buying EFI Live. And yeah, you know, but that's where I started tuning. You know, was Wayne was helping me out. So that ended up going on street tires again, because like I was always of the mindset I'm gonna drive and race the car as it is, not this weight cut BS. Never
having a trailer. She still rags me out about having trailers. She's like, remember way back in the day, you said you never have a car you had to put on a trailer. So, and anyway, yeah, man. So got that to run. I just remember it trapped 115. I don't remember what it ran. Stick shit, M6 car. So So I went to Afghanistan in 2004. Tristan was a couple weeks old. Just moved into a house. She had still been working. You know, we were doing good now. You get paid extra money for being a special forces guy, and then going on deployment, you basically like double your paycheck. So I went to Afghanistan in 2004. Still had the Trans Am. Got back. Did know the difference between a Z06 and a regular Corvette. Saw them at some dealership, some side hustle dealership on Bragg Boulevard. Drove in there with the Trans Am, and the manager wanted it like super bad for whatever reason. So they gave me way more than it was worth for it. But they had a convertible 01 or something, and then they had, or maybe like a 98 or something. I don't remember what it was. But basically, the Z06 ended up being less money because they didn't know what they had compared to that convertible automatic. Jesus. So I did like the research on it real quick, and that was always my dream car, bro. Just like a vet of some sort, especially because I had to give the 96 back because I couldn't afford it, So anyway, I got that car, and she didn't know. She did know. She fakes like she didn't know. So she calls me. She's like, hey, our friend's kids need to be picked up from school. Can you get them? I was like, yeah, one at a time. And she's like, what? What did you do? I was like, the same thing I told you I was going to do yesterday. I just went and did it. Yeah, so I pulled up to our friend's house, and they're looking out the window. They're like, what is that? Where's your freaking Trans Am? And I was like, it gone. She gone. And, whatever. Be all right. So that's what was funny is because, I think I went like 12.5 at 115 in the Trans Am or something. So the first time to the track in the Z06, so it was an 02, it was 04 now. I ran a 12.06 at 116.4. And it was like number 2 on the list of stock Z06s. Yeah, it was stock. Yeah, no, this was like toolbox in the back. Same way I drove it to work, the whole 9 yards. So I left for Iraq, I put a cam in it, ended up going 11.2 at like 124 or something.
Automatic or manual?
Manual. I'm rolling gears. And still on like stocks, And I go to Iraq. I'm over there. Well, we left for Africa.
Africa?
Yeah, we were in Africa training these guys for this mission, doing some stuff with them. So we're supposed to be there 3 months, 4 months. We were there like 5 or 6 weeks. I just get told to pack up, we're leaving. And I was like, well, that's okay. Whatever, sure. So I pack up, we get on the bird, which is a whole nother story, and we take off. Next thing I know, it's umpteen hours later, they cut the engines off, we're doing the death spiral down into somewhere. And I'm like, son of a bitch, this is what I remember when we went to fucking Afghanistan. Because basically back then it was the Wild West, So you just get shot out of the sky. So they would get over the airfield, they would cut the engines off, and they would death spiral. And then right at the last minute, they would cut the engines back on, and then you would land. Yeah, and so like, all I know is I got picked up in Africa thinking, oh, we did something wrong. Like, great, we're getting kicked out of this country now? What the hell do we do? We've been doing great things over here, And so, yeah, man, we start death spiraling in, and I'm like, fuck, back in freaking Afghanistan again? And we get out, dude, and it's like hot and stinky. And I just look at my team sergeant, and I was like, are we in Iraq? And he's like, yeah, bro. And I was like, word. So we got stuck in Iraq for 11 months, babe. And
She's out.
was it 10 months, 11 months? How long was I in Iraq? 10 months? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I was gone for a fucking year, and I was supposed to be gone for freaking 3 months. And yeah, so 05 in Mosul, Iraq, and north of that. And we had to train the Kurdish battalion to go down and take back Mosul for the elections. So anyway, while I was there, I ordered a blower and all kinds of other crap for the Z06. Got that back. Ended up being a mess. Was dealing with a local guy. He sucked. Long story short. So yeah, man, I was like forced to tune. You know, that's how I kind of got into it, you know, just being poor. So, but what was funny is like a lot of the team guys that I had, you know, I would take them for a ride in my vet and they'd be like, I'm getting one. And then they would go get one. And then I would have, you know, I'd be like, hey, I'll sell you my 383 for X amount and do the labor for free, but I want this. And so they would just go buy it, and I'd have 2 vets constantly in our garage for the next like 16 years. Just always vets. And when I say I skipped the 5th gen generation, I did, dude, because it was all vets. I did probably 4 or 5 5th gens. I was like, these things are turds. Turds. I'll never forget the day I did a Kenny Bell 5th gen. It made 7 something on Ben's dyno, which I do want to get to Ben at some point. And I did a vet that was like a head cam thing that I ported the heads and blah, blah, blah. It made like 450. Dude, I worked the dog crap out of that freaking 5th gen on the way home. We roll raced probably 5 times. And that 450 in the vet destroyed that 7 something in that 5th gen. And I was like, these are the biggest pieces of shit on the planet, and I'm never fucking getting one. So that when I, like I said, that's when I said I missed the 5th gen. The LS3 was cool, I guess, but since the LS3s weren't really prevalent until the 08 up, you know, by then I was skipping the LS3s and doing LS7s.
Yeah.
So when you're making 6 something in an LS7, someone's like, hey man, can you do my LS3? I'm like, I don't have time for that crap. You know, and everything was a stroker, you know, from the 02 stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Just started doing stuff with local shops, you know, trying to use dynos and everything, and I'll leave their names out of it, but I would show up with my homemade crap and freaking, you know, wear them out. And I finally got sick of the BS, so I made my own track event in like 2007 or 8 at Fayetteville, and I called out every freaking vet in the nation, come take my money. And in my 02 that had a 416 at a time, I ran 10.2s at 138 on motor with a GTO spare drag pack and some busted ass freaking Camaro rims in the back on a wore out ET Street, because that's all I can afford. With my toolbox in the back, I cleared everybody by a half a second and 5 miles an hour. So that was basically the end of that. And that was to include like the 07 Z06s with 150 shot that came from a shop around here. So, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of just how it started, how it evolved. And actually that 02, the guys I do want to mention on the 02 stuff. So I had like Thule's 235s for a long time, didn't touch them. That was like, you know, pre-MSD days. We didn't have MSDs, they were fasts.
Yeah.
And in like 2007, I was working at the Special Forces close quarters combat, you know, advanced marksmanship school, whatever. So for CQB stuff. And I had a little time on my hands finally because I wasn't deploying constantly. And ended up hooking up with Ron at Vengeance. So ended up doing a lot of work with them through that time frame over the next couple of years. And then using Texas Speed and all that. So yeah, Pat G camshaft. Shout out to Pat G. Pat G camshaft, the 235s from Brian, the trick flows, and a 416 that I put together And yeah, rowing gears went 10.2 at 138 in 2007,
That's flying.
which was unheard of. So, yeah,
So was that like an ethanol fuel you were using then, or?
93 octane, bro.
Say, 'cause I don't
There's
think
no
E85
such a
was even
no.
over here.
We didn't even. Yeah, we didn't get E85, dude, until I had the 16. Until I had Fat Red. Never even heard of it. Yeah, never even heard of it, dude.
So what was the transition when you went from that to like the 6th-gen stuff?
So
there's-
I avoided it.
Yeah.
No. So I avoided it for a long time. So I ended up meeting a guy named Cajun that has Bear Central Racing. I don't know what it's called now. He ended up moving it down the street for me. I had some Larry Moe ported 255 AFRs.
Louisiana, right?
Yeah, they ended up not working out. And nothing against Larry. He's a genius. I use what he says to this day. They just didn't work out. And so I ended up trading Cajun for some 205s that I worked over by hand. And then we went a whole lot faster on motor. Because you got to think, this is back in the day before anything existed. You know, we had some AFRs and like that was it. So I was comfortable with AFR, was familiar with them, had talked to Tony Mamo a lot, you know, so I was good with the product. Was using Texas Speed. I was speccing my own cams back then, but they were still using comp and they didn't have their own lobe yet. And I would get short block stuff from Scogg & Dickey, and then I would check it and assemble it myself. So, and then working with, you know, Ron and all that, at Vengeance. So, avoided. Cajun ended up buying a brand new 2015 C7 with an A8 as soon as they came out. And it's so funny because he ended up putting LS plugs in it. Didn't have an idea why it was running wrong. And like I said, I had been avoiding it through the 14 year, still doing, because I ended up having to sell the Vet in like 2009. Ended up just getting a truck because we were poor. That's the long story of it. You know, we had 2 kids by then and I wasn't deploying anymore. I was stuck at the schoolhouse and we had bills to pay, man. So I sold the car, sold my soul to the devil for some money, got us out of debt, and that was about it for the military. So I bought a freaking Z71 truck, all 4-wheel drive that had an L33 in it, and but I couldn't help myself, so I went back to doing shit on the L33. Ended up making some good power with that, some 799 heads, and I built a flow bench out of a vacuum cleaner and a manometer and some rubber hose and a fucking yardstick in my garage, using the Larry Vizard, I think that's his name, porting book, and started working on those. And that's kind of about the time frame. I think somewhere in there is where I met Rick Crawford also, because we were both doing work in the same area but didn't know each other, and we had a common machine shop. And every time I walk in there, the guy would be like, "Hey, do you know this guy?" I'm like, "No, man, we don't cross paths, bro. Like, I don't know him." But I was looking for somebody who had a flow bench, because my vacuum cleaner wasn't working all that great anymore. And there was no shops around here.
Vacuum cleaners aren't meant to run that long.
Yeah, dude, I probably could find some pictures of it. But, dude, for probably 3-4 years, at least, I had a freaking cut a hole in a table, stuck some PVC pipe, a 5-horse vacuum cleaner, some red dye and some water, and ran it up and down. And that's how I started porting cylinder heads. Started talking to Chris Frank a little bit and some other guys, Frankenstein, racing heads and all that, and wasn't happy with the products that I was getting from other people and knew we could go faster. So took the shit I learned 10, 15 years earlier, or whatever you want to call it, and started doing stuff like that. So through that mutual guy, I found out that Rick had a little SF-110 from like the 60s and 70s. So I took a set of 243 heads over to Rick's, and he had never seen anything that flowed like that. And he was like, "How'd you do these?" I was like, "I did it with a fucking vacuum cleaner." So he was like, "What else do you port?" You know, so I started doing some throttle bodies for him. I'll never forget. It was like middle of winter time. He gave me like 8 throttle bodies, and I won't tell you what he was paying me to do them at the time. And I was out there in my garage freezing to death, bro. And he would cut the center bar down, and that will murder freaking, like that shit added like an hour and a half to everything. Everything else was easy and normal. Been doing it forever. Cutting that fucking rod down, bro. So I took these like 8 throttle bodies back over to him, and they were the way I thought they should be, but that's back kind of when guys were still thinking that polished was better. So I take them back over there. They're good, they're smooth, they're this and that. And he's like, "They're not polished." I was like, "Yeah, I know." And he's like, "Yeah, so I'm not paying you." And I was like, "All right, I'll go fucking polish them." So, yeah, then he gave me a set of LS3 heads to do and some other stuff. But back to your question. So through that, Cajun was asking me to tune his C7. We didn't have trans tunes, we didn't have anything. So on pump gas, on like our 3rd or 4th tune, we went 11.2 at 124, which was the record at the time, you know. And then I ended up porting the intake manifold for it, and then the throttle body. And that's where the ported intake and throttle bodies came from.
Yeah.
So we started doing that, you know, and I just looked not too long ago, and I don't know how updated the forums are anymore, but that car is still like 5th or 6th on the list 20 or 10 years later, you know, whatever that is. So, and that was just me kind of beating around on it, you know, and so I got a, I got rid of the truck. I got a Trailblazer SS, like a, you know, ended up doing the 243 heads, the stock manifold, you know, converting the fans, all that stuff, custom camshaft I came up with, which that segues into me dealing with Martin Smallwood, who was at Tick at the time. That thing ended up making like 460, 470, which I don't think I ever saw another NA one make more than that. The closest was a BTR trick float 220s or 225s, you know, their thing, like all aftermarket shit. Yeah. And it still didn't actually outpower mine. And I did it all with stock stuff, just ported, you know. So that gave way to a V1. Ended up talking with Brian quite a bit about cam specs. We have differing opinions, but it's always good. Same thing, me and Rick, you know. So yeah, the V1 ended up making 570 at the wheel with a 416. Basically all ported stuff that I did. But the so if we back up to the Fitchin shit sucking so bad, I did a Fitchin for a guy. He was a complete douchebag, just an absolute tool, and the biggest complainer to this day that I've ever seen in my life. He took that car. That dude made me more friends in this industry than anybody else has, because he was such a douchebag. And he went to like 5 or 6 other people. They could never get the car to run right. They could never make more power than I made. And all this dude did was cry. Anyway.
I know people like that.
Yeah. So it ends up at Tick, and they call me, and hey man, you know, like, I made a mistake. He told me he didn't want to buy brand new LS7 injectors. He wanted me to find them online. I didn't know what the difference was. I got told that they were LS7 injectors. I freaking bought them. I tuned around what I bought and whatever. I got duped. I got sold shit that wasn't LS7 injectors. But what's hilarious is that I made them work and they made power. So for this dude to cry about anything, That's what he tried to get me on. They somehow figured out that they weren't L7 injectors because they looked at the tune data and was like, they should be bigger, whatever the fuck they said.
Yeah.
But through that, they call me and they're like, hey man, like, this thing's awesome. You know, we haven't been able to match the power, blah, blah, blah. What cam did you use? What did you do this? What did you do that? So that's when I started working with Martin. I deployed right after that, went back to Afghanistan, so I had some, you know, between missions, some time on my hands. So I'd go back and forth with Martin. And it was cool, man. I mean, I really owe the guy a lot. Like, he didn't give me specs, you know. He just was giving me theory and asking me to come up with something. So I ended up coming up with a camshaft for the Trailblazer based off of all the stuff. And it was so funny because when I was done, it was literally like a degree off of one that they did. And that's what I ended up running. I still run that cam to this day because it just flat out works. So, yeah, you know.
What year is this?
2010, somewhere there.
Pistons, brand new.
Yeah. So I finished so from 2007 to about the end of 2009, right in 2010, I was doing the instructor bid at the CQB and, you know, the close quarters combat, the advanced marksmanship, the combatives, you know, all that stuff. So my tour duty was done there, and I went back to group and started deploying again. I ended up doing 13 deployments in support of global war, so whatever. From 2004 to 2016, 16, 17. I did one in 18, 19, I guess 19, but whatever. So, so yeah, about, I think it was 2010, 11. I just did back-to-backs. Like, I don't think from 2010 to like 2016, I was home maybe more than 4 months, 5 months, depending on the years. So, yeah, that was a good time. But, you know, so yeah, so we do Cajuns. I was actually looking for a 4-door SS. That's what I wanted. I was done with the V1. I couldn't afford a V2. I was doing V2s, but I couldn't afford one. I had done probably 4 or 5 for friends, you know, and just wasn't in the cards at the time, you know. So I wanted one, but then I was like, well, I'll get this SS deal. So that or another C6 or C6Z, because I had been doing a bunch of those at the time too. So it was time to get back into something that didn't have 4 freaking doors on it, but we had the kids and all that bullshit. So anyway, I was really in with this dealership. We had bought a bunch of stuff from them. I bought all my parts from them, you know. So anytime something would come in, they would call me. So they called me about this Z06. It ended up being trash. And then there was a 5th gen that had a blower on it. And it's funny, I go to look at the 5th gen and guess who's ported LS3 blower or LS3 intake manifold and throttle body and all that shit? Mine. Because I had done tons of them during the Corvette era. So they wanted to do a deal for a truck and the Camaro. I basically got the truck for what I wanted and I backed out on the Camaro. And but they were cool with it. I went back. The Z06 didn't work out. Then they had a white 4-door SS on the lot, and I was like, I'm gonna get me one of those. And it was so funny because I looked at the 6 gens, and I was like, nah, I don't like them. They're too expensive, kind of ridiculous, you know, this, that, and the other. So something ended up falling through. The SS was like stupid expensive. I can't remember what the whole deal was. I ended up going back, and they wanted my V like really bad. And so yeah, I ended up with the 6 gen, and from there had a guy, John Miller. I don't know why. I guess through the Corvette forum or through the forums and through the Camaro 6 forums. He just supported me and believed in me and was like, hey, I want you to port some stuff for me, and started tuning my car, and then I was working on mine. So yeah, I ended up doing that. Cajun was pumping them out, you know, getting me jobs left and right for porting. So I basically got on the Camaro 6 forums at that point and was kind of looking around, and the logic didn't make any sense. Oh, headers don't work, cold airs don't work, porting doesn't work, converters don't work, blah, 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 blah. I was like, this is the most retarded crap I've ever read in my entire life. I was like, who are these people and why do they think they're experts when obviously they have zero knowledge of how things work? So the 6 gen had been out probably like 6 months, and I think the fastest one at the time was maybe like 11.5 or something. It's pretty freaking slow. So I got Fat Red. I called Mikey and them at Rotofab and was like, yo, I want you to make me a cold air. You know, are you guys working on anything? And they said, we can get you something. I said, all right, cool. Ported the intake throttle body and started working with another guy on some tuning stuff. And that's back before there was any flex fuel sensors or any of that stuff. So I think guys were waiting on a certain company to make a flex fuel sensor and they couldn't figure it out. So they contracted, unbeknownst to the owner apparently, my buddy and myself to figure it out. So he definitely was a driving force on that. I really can't claim a whole lot on that. I had some input on what it should look like and how to put it together and blah, blah, blah. But as far as the tuning stuff, he was pretty much ahead of the game. He was using HPT and I was still on EFI Live. But that's where we knew what torque tables were and all that crap. So EFI Live shit the bed on us something fierce, but I've been using EFI Live for 15, 16 years at the time. So I was very reluctant to switch over to HPT. Had no knowledge of it, and it's backwards from EFI Live. It's just straight up backwards.
Yeah.
So
It runs like a navigation.
it's just backwards. You know what I mean? Like, people who use both will understand what I'm saying. It's freaking backwards. So my whole life I was reading this way, and now I had to figure out how to read that way, and you know, none of the tables lined up. But it was funny because I was kicking my buddy's ass, him using his HPT, him using aftermarket BS and all this stuff, and I was wearing him out, and it was pissing him off. And I couldn't figure it out how I was able to stay in front with stock crap. And so anyway, he started selling stuff. Like I said, we came up with the flex fuel sensor, how to run it. So we're ahead of the game on that. That ended up being a big to-do. Luckily, he protected himself and had all the emails and proved the dude claiming that he came up with the flex fuel sensor that he was full of shit. And he needed to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And that was back on the forums, not on freaking Facebook, where it has a memory of a fish. That was on the forums where adults navigated and knew what was what, not children that want to have a popularity contest.
We're taking intermissions because we're trying something different here. And, you know, Brett was kind enough to...
I got shit to do.
He tests shit, we test him.
Bring
anyways, so we're back. Basically, I asked where we were. So we're at, he got a 6 gen, and everybody else is slow.
Facts.
Anyways, all right. Something that I've noticed a trend on like everything here, right, is that the porting and stuff like that. So I want to give you my perspective, and I want to know why, if you understand why I think the way I do, maybe, because I get the whole porting thing, and I like the NA stuff, and I guess I've just always been drawn to like just fucking boost it, right? But then the gains that we're seeing with like different cylinder heads is like 30, 40 horsepower. So, well, on the NA stuff, is it just more prominent to the NA stuff, or what draws you more to NA than boost? Is it just because boost you can just keep cranking the power up, right? And the NA takes the finesse and takes all of your money.
It's money, bro. It's money.
But NA costs more, right?
Now it does.
Okay. That's what I'm getting at. Because I remember everybody's always been like, oh, fucking NA because it's cheaper, man. And I'm just like,
it's not cheaper.
I think I came into it a little later, and that's why I think the way.
So you're always paying like Corvette tax, right? So, and then you got to figure.
Stingray.
Well, so prior.
Shut up, bro.
She's gonna get in. She's gonna get in on it one way or another. You're good. So, no. Really, like, dude, for me, everything has been finances driven, right? So, I've always been a poor. Not until the last, we were doing okay. And then Ben died, and, I'm fucking poor again. But, I was a civil servant on one paycheck, basically, for 22, 23 years. You know what I mean? So it was like, I had to outdo everybody with wit and skill.
Right.
And then in the LS market, though, you kind of ran out of that because everything went to the aftermarket. So I was just like all these other fucking chodes that just buy shit from somebody because they don't have the skill to do anything with it. And then you think, okay, well, these people that are producing this stuff must have taken it to the limit. Then you find out, no, they just settled on good enough.
Well, I remember when for the V2 stuff, so I came. I'd say I've always messed with cars, right? Because who hasn't? But I really started getting into it in like 2011, 2012. So that's why I think I have a different perspective on it. But when I started doing like the real into the V2 stuff, I remember a certain company telling me that porting blowers was stupid. And that you would never gain anything because if you could, the factory would have did it. And I was like, I don't know. Now, don't get me wrong, that was also the time that we were doing a guy, Evan Clark's car, and we had an upper pulley E85 and injectors, and we were running 990s with it. Yeah. And I was like, this is crazy, And I think at one point we had put a ported blower on it, but it was back then when like they weren't really making much of a difference, and the car actually went slower. So I was like, oh man, he had convinced me that like ported blowers were a gimmick. And then obviously now we know they're not. But that a thing? Is that relatable to the cylinder heads?
Yeah, because that wasn't your biggest restriction. Right. So your cylinder heads were still the restriction. So, so like to back that up, yes, I did boosted sections or C6 stuff. And saw big power gains on the Fitchins, but the Fitchins were just pigs, so it was a fucking terrible car. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, I always relate the CTS V2 and the ZL1, and like every Cadillac attack. Do you ever see a ZL1 out there beating people? Never.
Mine.
5th gen.
No, absolutely not.
That's what I'm saying.
So yes,
but they're the same car, but arguably the 5th.
But nobody had like
suspension.
But nobody had like A6s in the freaking. How many people had A6 ZL1s?
I thought they were all A6 ZL1s.
No, they're all like M6 ZL1s.
No, but they had A6 ones, and they would never compete with
Maybe they did, but dude, I didn't.
But why could a Camaro?
Bro, I'm with you, and here's so 100%. That's so funny you said that. So I had a guy come in when I always just worked out of my garage, whatever. Had a guy come in, fuel issue on a ZL1 Fitchin. Now, mind you, I'm used to 10-second stick shift Corvettes, with head cam shit. And he had what was considered the best of the best at the time. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
So, dude, we go down my little road, and I hit this thing, and he's all just over there petrified, like something bad's gonna happen. I hit this freaking dud, and I'm like,
waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, I'm like, dog, is anything gonna happen? And he's just over there, and I was like, what the fuck? And I felt bad for homie because he had spent all the monies, and dude, this thing was a turd. And yes, it had a fuel issue. I can't remember what it was, and we fixed it. And even after we fixed it, he's like, dude, this car still sucks. And I was like, well, yeah, do the math, dumbass. Like, you have a 230s, 240s, or 240s, whatever, something cam on a 120 lobe sep. with this jank ass blower, and this car weighs like 5,000 pounds. Fuck do you think was gonna happen? You thought it was gonna be fast? Are you kidding me right now? I was like, how about this? I'm gonna go back to the house. I'm gonna grab this little 450 horse head cam freaking C6 that I've been doing, and I'm gonna run out of your freaking life. And you might want to reevaluate your life, dog. And it is curious though, because I wanted one forever, but again, wanted 1.6 or an A6. Because you had like the Howard Tanners, back when he was cool. You had the the HT850 with his fucking designer jeans on, looking like a fucking douche. Anyway, I read what was that magazine that was out forever? GM High Tech.
It was a good magazine.
It was a great magazine. Like, I'm so mad they went away.
There's so much cool stuff in there.
Dude, Howard was painted all over that thing. Like, he was the man. And,
That's how he afforded the designer jeans.
Yeah, I saw the designer jeans things. I was like, what a fucking faggot. Anyway,
poor guy.
yeah, like, I don't mind Howard at all. I like Howard a lot, to be honest with you.
I think he had designer jeans on at the Streetcar Brag Nights.
Well, I have no doubts.
Stop it.
Yeah. Cutie. What a handsome devil. Anyway, yeah, dude, like, but he was doing great work on those things, man, and I wanted one so freaking bad. But again, just a poor that had to outskill everybody who had money.
I think that's why we relate so much, because every car I've ever built was just super budget. But
Yeah.
we get results out of it because I'm too poor to make mistakes.
Right.
Like I can't be like, oh, let me try this.
And I'll put the work in, and
Right.
I'm not ever going to settle for good enough.
Well, so do you think that most of your, I guess, achievement is just from being able to see how everything kind of functions? Because I think that's another way that maybe I work different than a lot of people. Is like when I'm thinking of something, I'm not like, oh, that's doing that because of that. I'm like, well, what else is going on? What's the whole picture? And I'll just run it through my head, and then I'll kind of, okay, this makes sense. And I've realized that's not the same for everybody.
No, it's like airflow. Like, I can't describe to you or make sense of, I mean, I read guys like porting stuff all the time, and I'm just like, all right, like, that's great.
How much does the flow bench actually relate to actual in practice testing, though? Because see, that's something I've always wanted.
If you, how do I want to say this to not help anybody else out? Because I'm done helping fucking people who don't deserve it out. There's certain things that make power that can be seen on a flow bench. They're not within the standards of what normal people considered standard flow bench technology.
Okay.
So the standards that we've been told, like Smoky Unic and all that, 1 CFM, 1 horsepower. Okay, great. Stick with that.
Yeah, but isn't that altered by compression and densities? And,
Well, so I look at everything as totals. So if, let's say you increase the flow at 600 by 10 CFM. Well, that's great. You increase the flow column 10% or 10 CFM. But if we increase every lift range
I was gonna say, what
from
about
0
underneath the 600 on your way.
yeah, right, and back down. So it's so funny to have a guy that's like, I don't know, he thinks he's popular now, and some people thinks he's good as what he does, and I haven't seen anything to back that up. So, but he chimed in on some, post I made where I said, through the lift column both ways, the lift column made another like 180, 300, whatever the hell it was, CFM. And he was like, nobody does that. I was like, well, that's fucking funny because we destroy your shit left and right and center. So, sorry you don't think properly. But all the air that's entering the freaking thing up and down counts. And I could just look at someone's cylinder head and just look at the combustion chamber and be like,
say up and down, just so I'm
through the lift curve both ways.
Your you're like ramping up
and down.
and then back down and just following every step.
Yeah, and then adding all that together, because all of that CFM is what has entered the cylinder now, and what can exit the cylinder now.
Now I got it.
You know what I'm saying? So a lot of guys ignore like below 300. You know, I mean, I can literally look at a set of cylinders that I see. I can look at the valve job in the combustion chamber and just be like, yeah, that head's gonna suck.
Wouldn't below 300 be kind of where the peak, the velocity starting to peak? Isn't that where like the most?
I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
I'm not a cam guy. I don't know any of this. I just,
keep
you know.
those 150 thousandths long 36-degree angles into the combustion chamber. Please, everybody, keep that.
I just shove boost into it until it starts working.
Yeah. And that's kind of like my thing, you know, like you can make anything fast with boost. I just shove more boost into it. So
Yeah.
I'm not against boost, bro, obviously. Like the majority of the cars around here are boosted. The whole thing is that, like, if you can build a good NA motor, then you're not limited.
Well, I guess the way I've always looked at it is like whatever you can make NA, you could just add boost to that.
Exactly.
You know?
100%.
But people are like, oh, it's high compression, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, the way the fuels are set up today, it's not really an issue anymore.
Yeah, I mean, lower the compression a little bit and adjust your cam shaft so it makes sense.
Well, so what about, I'm sure you did a lot of the LS7 shit, obviously, because that was king ding-a-ling of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, I guess a lot of the stuff I saw for LS7 was like high 500s, low 600s, was like an average setup for like a badass heads cam LS7.
Well over-reported.
Right, and like we do that with like a heads cam
So I will say that
LT1.
the last... So yeah, I was in that 6-something range. High 240s, low 250s cams. I used to keep like a 8 on all my LS stuff. For whatever reason at the time, it worked for me. I kept only like a 8-degree split between intake exhaust. I wouldn't do that now. But I think the reason I got away with it is because all we had was fasts and MSDs. So the MSD was far superior to the fast. But I was getting the same flow numbers with 30 or 40 cc smaller runners than everything that I compared it to. And I was keeping the fuel ramp and things like that in it.
Yeah.
And the results spoke for themselves. So, one great example, I had a guy from up north and did his LS7 on my buddy's dyno. It only made like 612 or whatever it was. Now, granted, at the time that was the most that dyno had ever seen. So even when we did it, my buddy was like, "Holy crap, you know what in the world?" And yeah, hand ported heads. You know, those I used to run comp LSL and Hucks. So I'd have an LSL intake lobe and a Huck exhaust lobe. And that's back when like Jeff Skinner, I think, was coming on with ZPS lobes and all that stuff. Again, you know, stainless steel intake exhaust valves, so you really couldn't spin them up to the moon because you had like a 1207X spring, I think, at the time. And, you know, 7,000 RPM was something to behold. So, but yeah, I did heads on my own at that point, and I had a customer come in that was like, "Hey, I got this X brand of heads." So I put them on my bench. I took them to Rick's, put them on Rick's bench. We CC'd them, and then we put my heads on, and then I took them to an SF600, but I was having to pay $150 to flow a set of heads at the time. So it was like, you know, and on the SF600 is where like the drastic change got shown.
Why is that?
So on our little low flow BS benches, you couldn't, how do you say that? So like, you couldn't get away with over porting an intake port. There wasn't enough flow velocity to cover down on a bad intake port. So when you have that low flow velocity, I mean, when you're talking like 5 inches, you know, something like that, when you start getting the upper lifts, dude, that there's nothing there to force that port. You can't cover mistakes. You know, at 28 inches, you can cover all kinds of mistakes. At, 40 inches, you can cover up just about anything, which is where like boost comes in.
Right.
Until you have like a really bad short turn. If you have a really bad short turn, you're skipping, the air off it. And that's, yeah, so whatever, I'll leave that alone.
Yeah.
So for years doing the development with the vacuum cleaner and then a little SF-110, the moment I went a cc over what was too big, I knew it immediately. Now that I've got the 600 and I've used 1020s and all that shit, like, you can mask a lot of stupidity with flow speed. Now the problem is an engine doesn't operate at 28 inches of vacuum. I don't know where they came up with that, but it just fucking doesn't. So you have variable flow rates and depressions and things like that based off how everything's working. So, just my take on it. I'm sure cylinder head guys are going to argue this to death. Oh my God.
Let them do whatever.
He's an idiot. As soon as you fucking outrun me, I'll listen to you. How about that?
So,
My uncle always said, don't take advice from somebody slower than you.
exactly.
So, I've kind of lived by that.
I'll listen, but
I listen and take everything in, but and I really do listen, and then I go test it. And if I can't make it work for me and it works for you, that's great. You keep doing what you're doing. I'm gonna go back to doing what I was doing.
yeah.
We don't have to do shit the same,
But to stick to the LS7 thing, was it more prominent to do the higher compression stuff with the LS7s? And
Like 11.
because it seems like on the LT stuff, it's like compression just add all of it.
And what was it, like 8.2, 8.0, 8.2 DCR used to be the cutoff? I did everything in my career based off of DCR, so dynamic compression, right? I learned that because Cajun had a real small cam, like a 224 cam. He had some like Mammo ported 205s, but they're milled to fucking death. And I could only get on an LS like 22 degrees of timing in those things. That car didn't make shit. It was sorry. So ended up taking those heads, selling them to somebody else. Got a different set of 205s that had standard combustion chambers. Was able to put timing in it. We gained like 30 or 40 horsepower.
Now, why is that?
Because the DCR was so high that it was just in constant detonation.
Okay.
And when you finally got it down to the timing where it wouldn't detonate, it didn't make power. So
Just to quickly explain what DCR is.
So intake valve closing point, it determines your dynamic compression ratio. So if you have 11-to-1 static compression ratio, so you look at the chart, you're like, hey, I have arbitrary numbers.
So 12-to-1.
So I have a 4-inch bore with a negative 10 cc combustion piston.
This thickness, that gasket.
Yeah, 40,000, whatever. At this cc, it's 11-to-1. That 11-to-1 doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. So that's how I always looked at it. That's how a lot of people look at it. And then when I really started kind of playing with my car, I'm like,
That's why a lot of
I'm like, wait a second, my car takes how much timing, and this doesn't make any sense to me. And
ZL1s were slow as dog piss.
but that's where this dynamic compression really comes in.
Exactly.
Because even though it's, let's say 12-to-1, once you calculate the cam,
Mm-hmm.
you end up
At 10-to-1
Right.
or 9-to-1 or whatever it may be. So I don't know what the DCR threshold is now, to be honest with you, because I just haven't paid attention in 10 years. But
based off of fuel.
yeah, I mean,
Like what
DI,
fuel can handle
E85,
Right.
you know,
The DI is going to handle way more DCR.
way more. Ton more. But you know, when you get like a ZL1 motor, it's got 10.5-to-1 compression,
No.
or 10-to-1 or
No,
whatever
it's
the hell it is. Yeah. So
It's 9.
is it 9?
9 or 9.5, yeah.
That was
LSA?
No.
Oh.
LT4.
10.5.
10.5. So 64 cc combustion chamber, blah, blah, blah. Well, now you slap a cam in there, it loses another full point of compression. And people are like, I can't believe you're on 25 degrees of timing on fucking E85 and meth. I'm like, well, I can't believe that your shit is that slow. Because dumbass. You just put a freaking cam that dropped a whole nother full point of compression. And the factory runs 20 degrees of timing basically on a factory LT4.
Have you ever seen the timing on a factory Blackwing?
I have yet to touch. So
29 degrees, 28, 29 degrees. That is a bone stock car logging it, just curious what it did on pump gas, 28 to 29 degrees. No clue why, but either way.
Yeah.
But
I guess that just kind of gets me in. I think a lot of people don't realize.
that goes with cam timing as well, right? So let's just say, let's just talk factory LT4.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as you hit the gas, they retard the car. They retard the cam 7 degrees. Well, guess what retarding your IVC does? It drops your DCR. So yes, you're gonna need more timing.
Yeah.
And then but does that actually help you make power? No. So when you zero that back out, people are like, oh, how do you say you run 2-3 degrees less timing than factory and you make more power? Well, gee, I don't know. Maybe through
Because you're on
cam timing and injection timing.
But see, I think that's where your knowledge of having to mess around with the NA stuff is helping you in your journey now.
Yeah.
Because I think that's because when I really started getting into the LT stuff, keep in mind I'm just a poor dude that started tuning because I couldn't afford it. I didn't have an engine building background, or I worked for GM and that, but I didn't know cam stuff. I still don't know cam timing. I rely on guys like you and Brian, whoever I'm dealing with. But once I really kind of was like, okay, it's time to figure this out, and you realize like the VBT, the cam timing, the pressures, the injection wind, all of this is so important. Man, we started picking up crazy power. But I know there's an aspect of it that I don't really understand enough of, which is this dynamic compression and things like that. I see why, and I always tell people, I'm like, I know what cams I run and combos that I run. I know what's working. I don't know why it's working.
Yeah, it just boils down to intake valve closing point. Long story short. So the sooner you close it, the more compression you're gonna have.
So why didn't you go into the higher compression stuff with the LS7s?
At the time, we were limited to 93 octane. You know what I mean? There's only...
Back then, I was doing flex in 2011, 2012.
I wasn't.
Okay. So
I had never even heard of E85 until I got my 6th gen.
What about race gas, or you just dealt with stuff?
Street cars, bro.
If you're rich to do that.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't do any race car stuff. You know what I mean? Like, there was no race car stuff. I still don't do any race car stuff. There isn't a damn thing that I do that you can't go load up and drive to freaking California.
I mean, that's something I'm big on too, and I don't know why. I've never had the love for like a race car only thing.
No, like that shit literally, like taking weight out of a car, any of that. Dude, none of that started until the fucking GPI faggots started running their fucking mouths. None of that started.
That's when all the fuel and all
That's when fuel, weight reduction, Until then, bro. So I drove to Bowling Green that first year. I drove my car to freaking Camaro Fest with another 1,000 pounds of shit in my car. Drove it I don't know, however far Bowling Green is, 9 hours, whatever it is, 10 hours, getting 30 miles to the gallon on pump gas with literally enough room to drive the car. And showed up there.
Well, that's
didn't.
kind of your fault for being a big old dude.
Well, I wasn't fat back then.
I didn't say fat.
Well,
Big old dude.
I was probably maybe 195, 200 pounds back then. But I left the complete interior in on purpose. Did not drop my exhaust. None of that stuff. I was the only car to go 10s the entire event. And I was the only car that didn't cut anything out. And I was the only car that drove it there. I was number 1 qualifier. Was the only car to go 10s. Turned around and drove it fucking home.
I think that's what kills me on the NA stuff is when you start wanting to compete nowadays with NA stuff.
Yeah, you gotta have
You have to
on nitro.
And it's just like what can you do with that car outside of
Nothing.
an eighth mile, quarter mile?
No. And when I say GPI faggots, I'm not talking about.
Not talking about GPI, we know.
And
You're talking about the
Brandon, I'm talking
the
about
guys on the internet.
all the you know.
Well, I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit,
Yeah.
but
So, you know, that was never my scene, bro. Like, still isn't really. But I ain't one.
that is your world.
I ain't one to avoid a fight.
That's your
I'm the
world.
last person to start a fight. I'm the first person to end a fight. So.
But I guess so. So is that? I still want to stick to this whole LS7 to LT1 thing because that's such a weird thing to me. Is why this big old motor
So I think
and these little
now-
motors are making such crazy power differences.
I think now, if someone gave me an LS7 now, I think I would compete with the LT makers. However, I don't feel that other
Calm
people
down.
that have been trapped in the LS7 world, and
Calm
they're
down.
thinking of that sort, will be able to outrun me in an LS7 with an LT of smaller.
Are we talking like LT, like a stock LT1 bottom end, or we're talking like a 427 LT1, 427?
Yeah. So the only difference would be
Because cubic inch to cubic inch, there's no way to LS wins.
only because of fuel. If you put them both on 93 octane,
Still,
or sorry, so if you put them both, so
don't
if
you
put
say
them
it.
both on
One
93
came with direct
octane-
injection on purpose.
Yes. So if you put, because you have to look at airflow characteristics, what's there, right? So I'm talking like 640s back with MSDs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've made 650 with MSDs. Now, the MSD design for the LTE is fucking hot garbage. I don't know who designed it, but they need to be punched in the face.
Isn't it better than the? It's better than the stock stuff, and it's
It's better than the stock stuff, but it's nowhere near as well designed as the LS7.
yeah. If they would have made that thing just a little more attractive.
They shouldn't. No one in this industry should tailor crap just for the C7.
Why
That's
not?
where it all comes from.
We're the bougie ones.
Because you guys don't spend fucking money.
That's true, because we spent all the money on the Corvette for the Corvette
Boom
tax.
shakalaka. So,
All the money you bought your 6th gen and put in it, I had to just do that to pay for the Corvette.
I know.
So there is so much more room and hood clearance in a Camaro. They could have done so much
They
better.
Two designs.
100%.
Right.
Why wouldn't you?
Well, because people are, they don't care about that. They just care about that. That's the problem.
Yeah, I know. It's just insane that the mentality of the aftermarket is still get around a C7 or a C6, just the Corvette. So the aftermarket, unless they're just like, we're gonna blow through your hood anyway and just go to a fucking high
I
ram.
mean, that's what fucking everybody does now, though.
Of course.
To be honest.
And the high ram even, is
Like the first
shitty.
few I saw stick through the hood, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Now I'm just like, dude, you've ruined every fucking car out there. And it's mostly your fault. Because they see it and they're like, well, Prey cut the hood up, so I mean, then I kind of like it. I'm like, well, you fucking don't.
No, it's ugly.
Every time it rains, you don't like that. Whatever.
We get
Hood looks,
around.
Like terrible. Either way.
I don't know.
So,
I'm not against it.
so the LS7.
Yeah, so I couldn't imagine what I could do with an LS7 now with the lobe technology we have, the high rams, all that other stuff. The difference is going to come in where you can only make 7 or 8 horsepower with port injection on an alcohol-based fuel, ethanol, alcohol, whatever it's called, same damn thing, where DI will make, I just call it 22. If you make, in my opinion, if you make more than 22 rear wheel from E to pump, your pump's tune sucked.
Right? Again, what?
So if I see guys all the time, oh, we did pump gas and then we put the car on E85, it made 40 wheel. Well, then your pump gas tune sucked balls. If you make more than 22, maybe 25 max on your E-tune over pump gas, your pump gas tune was fucked up.
We're talking a dialed in pump gas and then a dialed in.
And a dialed in.
Not like from stock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'm like, well, I've made 40 from stock.
Of course, stock. But like, no. If you dial in a pump gas tune and then you add E to it and you gain more than 22 to 25, your pump gas tune sucked.
And that's because of the factory compression, factory GCR? Or
Any.
even with high compression?
Yeah, to a certain point. Like if you're talking like 15 to 1, of course.
Like 14, isn't that like the go-to? it still breaks my mind because I'm used to like, oh, 12-1 over that, you better stop running pump gas, right? And I'm watching these, every Camaro is 14 or more.
Yeah, but you have to look at who's doing it because it goes back to DCR. So someone in one of those questions was like, why does your stuff XYZ, blah, blah, blah. So as far as I could tell, everybody else runs at least 10 more degrees of cam timing than we do. That bleeds off DCR. So yeah, if your lobes are soft and you have to spin your shit to 8K or whatever it is, and you have to run 10 degrees more cam timing, then yeah, you're gonna need to throw timing in the car. You're gonna need all the compression in the world to do it. If you're running a better lobe that runs within, so here's the other thing, is like we're dealing with 6.5-inch runners. Where does a 6.5-inch runner peak? 72.
Maybe.
So why would you run stuff? We have 8 to 10 forward gears.
Yeah.
Why? Make it make sense. So if I can use a factory head, run half a point or a point less compression because I'm running 10 degrees less timing and I'm still faster than you, what is the point of your program?
Right, so basically you're optimizing.
DCR.
Right, using that down there.
And airflow.
Just using a little less time.
Yeah.
Because you don't need it.
I don't need it. I don't need all the cam timing. I don't need a big ass cam. I don't need a lot of RPM. Because so what if you can rev a 6.5-inch runner to 8,000 RPM? Guess what? You're done past 72. You're on the downslide.
Yeah.
And you still have 4 fucking gears to use to go forward. So why? Why do it? It's not a 3-speed. You don't have to do more work over time.
Right.
You're not limited to 3 gears in a non-lockup converter.
Now, is that why I've seen the results that I'm seeing? Is these smaller cams with the boost stuff? Every time I see somebody with these big old cams, we're getting a lot of intake heat. We're having a lot of they just don't go that fast. And then I decided let's try this tiny cam, and I'm like, wait a second. Yeah, I'm like, well, because of our runners, right? Because the blowers. I mean, how big is a blower?
0.7 liter blower, right?
I have 2650, but either way.
But
It works either way.
it's still not that large of a deal, right? So let's say if your cylinder heads are good, and let's say you're over 215 degrees of duration,
Barely, but yeah.
you can cram that cylinder full with the time that you have to cram it full with the injection and the cycling that you have time to cram it full with. Now, if you're looking at the exhaust ports, depending on whose cylinder heads you run, you have to be able to get all that stuff out. And we still have this dumb mentality that like an inch and 7/8 or a 2-inch header is enough through 3-inch exhaust, and it's freaking not. So yeah, so if you can't exhaust it, then yes, having a 20-degree split, let's say arbitrary numbers, 215, 245, or 215, 235, or whatever, and you're going to put that on like, I don't know, a 115 to a 118 lobe set, and then you're going to put all of your overlap, which won't be much on that, if any, on the exhaust side, right? So you're cramming all that air in because of the boost. If you had more exhaust, you would out exhaust the intake. So you wouldn't need all that.
So if I had bigger headers, more flow.
Bigger headers, more exhaust flow.
Right, so that's
all
why
it
we're
is.
seeing the bigger exhaust numbers because we're
You're crutching a shitty exhaust system because you've taken care of the shitty intake system with the blower and cylinder heads. I mean, most guys focus on intake ports on their cylinder heads. They don't put a whole lot of love into the exhaust port. It's good enough. It's coming out at 2,000 feet per second, let's say, or over that, because it has to be supersonic, because that's the pop you hear. So, but that supersonic only lasts for what, 300 lift, and then after that, the whole rest of the time, it's moving at normal speed or piston speed.
300 and down doesn't matter.
Yeah, no. Please
So,
don't worry about that.
and what you're saying makes a lot of sense because, you know, I watch what a lot of people do and just because I want to see and I want to learn. And you see Rick slowly went from like a bigger header, a bigger exhaust, to no exhaust, to fucking zoomies. And I'm like, okay, well, he's not doing this because he isn't getting gains.
Yeah.
Right?
No, and I had like 2 1/4-inch headers on Fat Red. That
Yeah.
had 4-inch exhaust.
Well, so, and I'm going somewhere with this. So when I went to go test my car, as soon as I got over about 1200, and I do have inch 7/8 headers again, but I'm working on it. It's coming. The mufflers.
Yeah.
Something I thought was kind of crazy. If you read some of the GM stuff, the factory Z06 mufflers and the C7 ZR1, the ZR1 has a different internal valve system, and it's because the Z06 mufflers were actually swelling.
Yeah.
And I see everybody runs these Z06 mufflers, and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm everybody.
Yeah.
So on the dyno, I make a rip, dialed everything in, dropped the exhaust, almost 60 wheel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the, this
Dude, I
is
saw
crazy.
that in 2005.
Right. Calm down. Remember, I came into this late. What,
I love you because people try to talk. People want a number. They don't want the best performance.
well, I try to put the whole picture together from working with and watching and listening and
But
learning.
the argument's going to be, oh, well, I made X amount of power through the stock stuff.
Yeah, I don't give a
That's all
shit
you
about
ever
that.
did. I know. But
If I gained almost 60 wheel, all I can think of is I fucked something up here,
Yeah.
right? Obviously.
Yeah.
And I knew the mufflers were it. But on the NA stuff, is the small intake just because I have the blower working and I can't make the exhaust work? On the NA stuff, is that the same deal?
So,
Because I'm working to this.
So let's
I'm working
say-
to this back pressure thing.
So I put everything on the flow bench, right? So this is where the flow bench stuff helps you out. So I did a stock manifold, a porter manifold, LT2, MSD, blah, 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 blah. The way that I ended up with the high rams, I gained 4 CFM on the intake. You know, that's like significant considering I was losing 20 or 30,
Well, how long was the runner on the high ram? versus
6.5,
What's the stop?
11.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Well, so you have 2 runners on the stock are 11.2. The others are like 7.5, 8, something like that. I have to. It's been a long time. The outer 2 are longer. The rest of the middles are shorter. On the MSD, they're all like 7.5. But the problem is, let's say you have a 7.5-inch runner, which is great, but you don't have enough plenum volume to feed all of it. So now what are you gonna do? So that's where like our lid mod came, and people were, oh, your lid mod doesn't work. Good, then don't run it, bitch, because we picked up 22 wheel. You know, and that's where your, you know, exhaust mod doesn't work. Well, that's weird. It's been 18 wheel on every fucking car that we've ever done.
Yeah.
So it's like, cool. I'm glad you're not running that shit.
So when we're not seeing the gains, so okay, I'll give you a scenario: a V2. Okay, when we were messing with Wendy's car, this is way back. We went from factory manifolds. I think it had cat deletes already, but factory manifolds and everything. Car was making 700 wheel, right at 700 wheel. We swapped in a set of 2-inch headers and we didn't gain anything. Is there
because
something
you
we
lost
didn't
the
do?
boost.
So the back pressure that was holding the boost was now gone. So that boost that you were seeing was creating pressure on the intake system to make power. So now what I tell guys with stuff like that is like you have to pulley up to get back to the same boost ratio.
But
You
isn't boost just
should have, it's a measure of restriction, right? But measure of restriction is also how much airflow is passing through the motor. So let's say that the measure of restriction was, I don't know, arbitrary number. You had the stock exhaust, you made 20 pounds of boost. You put 2-inch headers, you made 17 pounds of boost. Well, you're still processing technically like the same amount of air. So that's why it's not gaining anything. You removed the restriction, but you didn't put any more intake into it. So now if you get that back up to 20 pounds from where you were at 17 pounds now, it's usually 2 pounds.
Yeah, it's always almost 2.
It's about 2 pounds. So now if you get that boost back up, now you're gonna see those gains. Because yes, you exhausted the exhaust, sounds stupid, but you didn't put anything else through the motor. You just let it out. It's still fucking crammed in there. Couldn't go anywhere. Now it could go anywhere, but you lost what you were putting through because it's going out. So that's basically the only kind of logical explanation for people to say, oh, I put exhaust on it, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, yeah, now get it back up to the same.
Power. We literally, it made.
Yeah, and that's the same thing like, hey, I put a cam in and I didn't gain X, Y, and Z. Well, okay, how much boost did you lose? Because you lost that pressure that was against it.
Well, so that's something that a big one I think isn't discussed enough, and it's going to totally go to your LT stuff and your compression stuff, is these guys that'll go and they buy this big donkey dick cam and they put it in a stock motor. Don't shave the heads, don't do anything. They're like, man, I put that fucking stage 4 cam in this thing, and I'm like, so basically you're slower than stock.
Yeah, you
So-
are, because you were lower limited. Right.
Well, I'm talking about NA. On the NA guys.